Happy New Year. It's Margaret Stacey. The Capitol is now open officially again. It's been pretty quiet for 2 weeks. We do have to have a downtime occasionally. Nothing froze. Nothing nothing was upset or mismanaged in the theater while we were quietly having our Christmas holidays. And we're up for a really new and interesting schedule. So I want to give you some of the details of it before we get on to our guests today who are patiently waiting. Our first event at the Capitol is Friday, January the 15th with Peter Gould. He's an artist, an author, and an anthropologist, and he'll be speaking on the arts of consciousness through Inuit, Navajo, and Tibetan vision masks. So it's a really interesting presentation from, and the members of the Tashi Choling Society will all be out there to bring you this imaging, this sacred mind. Saturday, January the 17th. I don't often mention the recitals for different piano students on this because you'd think it was perhaps just of interest to the parents of the students. But you know, you can go along and hear all our young talent do their thing. The students of John Pengelly on Sunday, January the 17th will be gathering to do their recitals. On Friday, January the 22nd, Valdi comes to the Capitol. Now, I don't think he's been here before, so it would be really nice to see this man in person, and he's a Canadian favorite. Sunday, January 31st, the City Band has some surprises. They're taking a new twist this year. They've become a big band group, or they have actually had a small group developed, which comes back in and does big band numbers with them. And band director Paul Gergely is really enjoying this element of his city band recitals this year. But they haven't had a concert, so this is the first one they've had at the Capitol this year. So come on out and see it on Sunday the 31st. And that evening as well, we're having a new movie series from Express Events, and started off with that 3D movie back in near Halloween. This one is Never Give a Sucker and Even Break. So we're going to be doing Sunday night at the movies occasionally at the Capitol. And into February, just to give you a little sneak preview, Corky Evans is calling on all interested community members to come and talk about the budget. So y'all come out, listen to that. And Potato People will be turning up at the Capitol for the Kids Concert Series on the 7th. So you can... looking a little further ahead in February, I've talked about this one before, Jumpstart's Berlin Angels arrives on the 20th, and that is something completely different. I know, because I'm promoting it. And then on Sunday the 21st, the Little Eagles of Siberia. So I think that's as far as I'll go for right now, because these two gentlemen that I have pulled off the theater stage are waiting extremely patiently. To my left, over here, far left, is Michael Graham. And on my left here is Daryl Verville, and they are producing. I better let you talk about it. Who wants to talk first? What is it?
I can go ahead.
Daryl, go for it.
Sure. Well, the title of this project is Dream of the White Shadow, and it's a multimedia extravaganza, I'd like to say.
For starters. Okay.
For starters, yeah. It's really an outgrowth and development from the Rite of Passage, which I did approximately 3 years ago at the theater here. And that was, to me, like a sketch, or a blueprint for something now that feels a lot more full, a lot more developed. So I think what I learned and gained from that experience with Maria Formolo and doing that show and performing it around, and the development it went through gave me a lot of direction for this particular project, and in the sense that I feel there's a lot more of a story being told. There's something more comprehensible in it, not so abstract. There's a line that we follow through all the way through, and even though we're using various mediums such as computer animation, 3D animation, and all the music, mask work, clowning, costumes and miming and all of that we really see a thread, and we see a line, and we see a development of story. We have a climax, we have a denouement, we have all of those things that we would see.
So it stands itself as a piece of theater rather than segmented
exactly, yeah.
Pieces that often occurs in dance work.
Yeah, exactly, and a lot of clown shows where you have just skits. It's not like skits. One scene really has to do with the other scene, and all the characters have something to do with each other, and they're telling a story, and so it's very much theatric in that sense.
You're the creator and composer.
And producer.
And producer. Oh, the bankroller, that's what the important person is here. Okay. That's what a producer is. Okay, you're the composer. That's your primary area of interest from which this all began, I think, isn't it true?
You might say primarily. I mean, that's where the most study has happened in my life.
He's a really good piano player, you know. Okay. Come on, Daryl.
Well, there was a really big development for me in the music part of it because I'm known as a piano player and a pianist, and the difference here is that I got into composing a lot more, and it brought me into composing with synthesizers and the use of computer and synthesizer together in order to be able to really orchestrate and have what we might call an electronic symphony. So the music in it is really a compilation of hundreds of instruments, and the latest really in our technology. We've got sounds in here that I don't think anyone's heard yet. You know.
Have you got a piano on the stage too?
And we have a piano on the stage.
Are you going to use a real piano?
And we're going to use a real piano.
Okay.
Yeah.
Your own?
Well, we're not sure about that yet.
He likes his very own piano.
I'm the most familiar with my piano, and it's a beautiful piano, so
Okay.
it'd be nice to have it.
I just want to turn to Michael here for a minute. Michael, what's your job in this?
Well, that varies.
This is Michael Graham. Okay, let's go.
I was basically brought in as stage manager, but I've worked more over into the direction side now. Well, that was sort of talked about as well. I am doing a lot of the direction, but Daryl has the final word. And I am taking the pieces, there's so many facets of it, and full, as Daryl said, is the operative word, is full. We're compacting it into a piece. It's I'm helping mold it and shape it, and using Daryl's imagery and music, and also I'm working on the developing of the set a bit and changing it a bit. And
What's your theater background? I know some of it, Michael. I don't know all of it.
my theater background.
Yeah.
My theater background. My background.
Yes.
Okay. I was basically trained in Australia in theater and as an actor. And I worked with a theatre company in Perth, in Australia, for 5 years. And in that time, I did everything from sets to costumes to acting. And basically, that's where I got my start, was there. Though I did do some when I lived in Luxembourg. I was at the theatre company there.
Canadian theatre?
I haven't done much. I've done my own stuff here in Canada. Fringe festivals, things like that. What I've done a lot of is worked with a lot of dancers since I've been here, and bringing theatre to dance, and helping create pieces with dancers. And I've done several performances with dancers and movement pieces. I'm not a dancer myself, but I have a certain movement of my own, and have worked in a movement area with dancers.
Yeah. So that's really what you bring to this, actually, is what you did with.
Yeah, you see, I've worked in so many aspects of theater and that with dancers and dancing and acting, that it really helps with this piece, because there's so many facets that it uses. You know, it uses theater and dance and visual effects and that sort of thing.
All at the same time.
Yeah, well, yeah. And so I'm helping mold them together, and it's you know, it's hard for Daryl to sort of step out of it because he's so involved in it as well as performing in it. I'm the other eyes outside looking at what's going on.
Got to have other eyes too.
Yeah, and helping pull it together. And
the third eye.
Well, the third eye.
You're the third eye, right?
Yeah,
we'll paint one right here on him.
Yeah.
Well, a good word that Michael uses is that he's really making it theatric. You know, he's really breathing that life into it, you know, so that it really holds together as a theatric piece, you know, and it doesn't lean too heavy on any one side. Yeah.
Yeah, you can get some real imbalances in show. You know, you can go overboard with dance, and there's a little bit of this little song that trills through it, and it's lost because it's so overwhelmingly dance or overwhelmingly music, and the odd dance flits through it. You've got to create that that balance. We're finding that even with pantomimes and stuff like that. You know, you've got to try and balance all the elements of it, because they all really contribute.
They do, yeah. And I really find Michael contributing a lot with that everything that happens, that he finds the reason for it happening and how it relates to what happens after or before. So he's forming that organic unity
What do the
throughout
actors
whole
say?
thing.
What's my motivation here?
Yes.
What was it? I believe, just digressing for a bit, who was it that said, I think it was during Hook, I think it was Dustin Hoffman, who's very serious about these things, and he couldn't remember what, he'd go around and he'd say, what's my motivation here? And Olivier would say, try money. Another one would say,
Well, that's not our motivation
Yeah,
here.
if it were money that were the motivation, we'd be short a little on that end.
and another one, I guess it was Robin Williams who would say, well, why don't you just try acting? My motivation. But yeah, you have to find that and I didn't realize that too long before I got into theater, that you got to see your way to the end of the thing before you start. You can't just sort of aimlessly find your way through it. So finding your motivation from scene to scene, especially in such a complicated piece that you're doing. Which brings me to something else I want to not digress on, actually. It's not a digression. There's an attitude out there quite often in smaller places that whatever you can bring from the outside must be better than what you can home grow. In terms of production. You know, if you bring a touring company in, it's got to be better than the local theater company. And I have so often found it's exactly the reverse. You bring in a touring company, it's right off in the end of its tour and it's tired. And if you gave the same thing to a community group with a lot of talent and stuff like that, they'd make it fresher than anything you ever saw. So I'm a great believer in original productions right here and now, you know, that are meaningful to the community. How does your production reflect your community? I don't know if that's sort of a thing to throw. Does it reflect this place? Do you believe what I say?
Well, I think in this production there's a lot of history that comes with it, you know, and there's a lot of influences that do come from the outside, and that particularly in the terms of my own study, you know, studying with Cheryl Cashman for a year. So she brings something from Richard Pachenko and that school of clowning that really originated in Poland. And so there's a big, strong influence that comes from that, as well as other performers in this production have studied with Cheryl. So we see an influence coming from there.
A little bit of discipleship that goes apostolic succession, or whatever.
Yeah. Oh, sure.
Yeah,
you know,
right.
and you know, and then my studies with the really excellent teachers that I've studied with, and what they gave to me through many years of study. So that's all coming into it as well. And thinking of the performance that we did with the Rite of Passage, that it was local, and I live here, this is my town now, and I've been here 7 years. That show went out, and it went out to good theaters, and we performed in Japan, and we got invited to Russia, and it wasn't thought of as just some small little town hokey theater thing, you know, that it had met a standard that was acceptable to an international community. And certainly in this production, we've really, I've strived to achieve, you know, that kind of a caliber. And artists that have been involved, besides the artists here, are artists from Alberta as well, and some influences from people in Vancouver. So, you know, there are influences outside of Nelson, but being that it's primarily my baby, if I can call it that. You know, I like to think of it that, yeah, it's a Nelson production, and it is an original production. It's not based on anyone's play or anyone else's music or anyone else's ideas.
One of the hardest things to fight is that feeling. Well, if it's here, you know, and then you take it 50 miles and it's not here, and it doesn't. You know, it's really touring. The definition of touring
That's always
is
really difficult.
50 miles away from where it started.
But there's so many, talking about the community and reflecting the community, I think the reflection of the community is in the performers. The performers have come from various aspects of theater and dance, and all have different sort of training in different areas that are contributing to it.
Who are some of the performers?
Lynn Fredericks, Kai
Froby.
Giselle. Giselle.
Giselle. Everyone knows Giselle.
Lovely Giselle.
We do first
And
names in theater.
Jay Wood.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay.
But there's, I think the other part of the community, as maybe not so much as community as what this area has reflected, is the Indian heritage, as some of the ritual stuff that is going to be touched on in the piece, which I think reflects about the area and about the sacredness of this area and the healing power of this area that the Indians cherished about it.
So there's a native element to this.
There's definitely a native element. I was noticing when you were talking about on the 15th, I believe, in January, that there's a man coming to speak about sacred ways and imagery of the Navajo and Tibetan people. And I've developed a really quite an intimate connection actually with the Navajo people, and was adopted by one of the elders
No kidding.
into his family, yeah. So when they
Your shirt.
he gave me the shirt. And so, you know, that there's a beautiful thing in that.
Yeah.
When a native elder adopts you, you become part of their family, and their brothers become your uncles, and their sons
Okay.
become your cousins, and you're always welcome in their home, and you've developed a relationship with them. And this is something that's happened, and I've learned a lot through their ways and been invited to many ceremonies that they do, and really gleaned something that I was looking for during the process of this production and creation of it. I really gleaned and saw something, and they offered something that I was able to take from there and be able to offer out to a larger community. And it also just ties in with exactly the themes that we're using in this production. So it's been a really interesting process that's gone on, and how it's come about to be what it is now.
What would you say is the theme of the production? When I'm an English teacher, I can't help doing this. We have to ask ask the students what the theme of the story was. So, what would you say?
I would say
What's
that
your message? What's your hope for it?
Well, it's a real poignant look and study about the relationship of man and humanity, and a history that's been patriarchal, and that influence on not just women, but what we look at as how the native people would call the feminine principle. All that is feminine, the Mother Earth, women, you know, the cosmos itself. And what we have done as a society and as a humanity in our history, given a strong patriarchal structure, how that's affected our relationships with women, how it's affected our relationships with the earth. And I'd say that this production is really about, it's like a psychological study of the effects that has happened as a result of that relationship, and ways in which we might think of changing. You know, because almost all of the native peoples and many pre-Christian religious people had a matriarchal you know, format in their belief system, and had a great honoring of the feminine and of women and of the Mother Earth. So I would say that that's a really underlying the biggest theme that we're dealing with in this production.
Well, it sounds like a wonderful thing to come out of the Kootenai. You know, it's the right place for it to come from, don't you think? And, you know, whether the ideas have come from the Kootenai to you, or whether you're the right person in the right place at the right time, or everything, it's a perfect spot. This would not do in L.A., you know? No. It wouldn't do in, you know what I mean? It would not, it's not, inappropriate. Inappropriate there. It's appropriate here. And some of the greatest messages do come from the wilderness, you know? That was my religious thing for the week. Well, what about some of your designers? Now, are you partially? It's part you have the design. Michael, you're participating as design, and I know you've got really good people online. I know there's a giant growing in the basement of the Capitol Theater. That's all I know. Now, you've got designer set and costume design work, and so far it's just been first class from what I've seen, the bits and pieces and shreds that go by me. But I know that it's been dramatic now. Fill me in on that.
Yeah, well, the design that's happening now, there's design happened in Alberta, which I don't know who worked on that. Some of
if
the
I could say a word about that, that the mask work and the giant figure were created by people in Edmonton, artists, really excellent artists in Edmonton that work in different various festivals in Edmonton and are kind of on a full-time schedule with projects there, and people that worked with me in the rites of passage. And so I'd already had a good relationship with these artists. So they made a contribution to this. And I'd like to make a note too here about the animation that's being done, because I think people are going to get a chance to see something that's really new.
Actually, film animation or computer animation?
It's computer animation, and it's known as 3D, three-dimensional computer animation. So it's not just a two-dimensional image, it's three-dimensional. So you have to actually build all your objects as architectural structures in the computer, and then design them and have them move and interact with other objects. And it's a very complex thing to do. And we were able to acquire the latest in programs that hadn't even come to Canada yet, the latest ones out, which was the big challenge, to learn those programs, to incorporate them into this production, to have it go along with the thematic structure, that it relates to other elements in the show, what's happening on stage. So it was an immense challenge to do that, and then as well as to take that and write music to it. So it brought me to a whole new place, and it was like a very big education.
Are you writing music did you write it on a computer?
No, I think that's something I'd like to speak about in the sense that I think a lot of people think, well, when you have a computer, well, the computer will do the work for you.
Oh, no, I know it doesn't.
No, it doesn't do the work for you. No,
I know it.
No.
Having struggled.
The computer is just a tool that helps you, that gives you a lot of memory capacity. Yeah. So everything that I play is memorized, and I can lay down many tracks. So, you know, if I have 100 instruments that I'm wanting to play, that computer is going to remember it all and record it all. Yeah. And provide that aspect for me, as well as some editing features. But everything that we hear in that show was played on the keyboards and simply recorded. Yep. Yeah. And
it's I think people don't realize too how much skill that takes. I watched Donnie McDonald do that for us at the Capitol a few years ago on a production we did all the background music for, and it was an incredibly long process. Just running through the keyboard, MIDI interface, the computer, putting in a disc, and then getting the actors, the singers, to try and work with it, which is the other hard part too, because it's so it runs by such a strict law. It does. That there isn't as much movement and leeway as you have with a conductor there, and the orchestra will slow down when there's actors out, you know, and that kind of thing. So it's a really difficult challenge, I think, for both the composer and the performance alike.
Well, it's really programmatic music too. So it's not just pure music for music's sake. It's music that goes along with scenes. So even music going along for scenes that are happening live, well, then that has to be choreographed with the music. But as well as in the animation, we had to do frame by frame. You know, this is exactly what's going on. This is exactly, you know, fitting that music to exactly those scenes. So that represented a good challenge, and I think we met that challenge.
How long did it take you to put all that stuff together?
Well, this has been a 3-year process.
Oh, gee. Yeah. Well, the culmination's coming up. I never even mentioned the date here. We're around. You got to remember this is on your Valentine's Day. Keep that in your head, okay? 13th and the 14th. There's a production on the opening show is the 8 o'clock the evening of the 13th. That's great. And
7:30.
7:30. Let me just check this here.
7:30 or 7 o'clock on Sunday the 14th.
On Sunday the 14th, I think. Actually, we have 2 o'clock, but we'll change that in our calendar, okay? If that's what you want.
Yeah, we should know.
We'll change that when we get back to the theater. So, okay, I have just a couple of other questions. You have some designers, local designers too. I noticed this is the costume work. I've just been noticing as I go by, seems to be quite extraordinary. And, you know, it's taken Catherine months to put together this incredible giant that's worn by a dancer who melts down actually every child that comes through the theater and goes down to the basement. And when there's huge school tours, they go, oh, what's that? And I said, it's a giant in Meltdown, don't worry about it. It's just
Meltdown. A nuclear reactor.
They find this giant awesome. So every child, I think, in the city knows about this giant already, because it's really an extraordinary piece. Your set design.
The other thing about this is that, and this relates to the set and the costuming as well, there's so many elements that want to be, that Daryl would like to have represented that what I've been doing is trying to pare it down and just put the essential elements so that the essence of the action and the story doesn't get lost in a barrage of costuming, etc. And it is quite grand and elaborate. So all I've been doing is taking what we have as far as the costumes go and masks and things like that, and looking at them and just sort of paring them down a bit and trying to make them more compact so that the action and the theme of the
tightener.
He's the tightener.
The tightener strikes.
It is sort of like
Daryl's on the loose, and
always
Michael's
one. I just
roping
pulled
him
the
up
rein.
and saying,
Hang
"Come
on,
on now."
Those damn directors, they spoil your fun.
Oh, jeez.
the set designer is Bob.
Bob Hendricks.
Bob Hendricks. He's a local guy.
Yeah, I worked with him once, and he was really remarkable.
Oh, he's great, and he worked on the rite of passage.
Such an artist.
He is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you're really going, I think, first class all the way on this thing, and it should be an extraordinary experience.
And Catherine.
And
Catherine.
and Catherine.
Don't forget Catherine.
Catherine's Giant. We just call it Catherine's Giant. We don't know in the basement. But it's. I'm really looking forward to this. I love, multimedia, local multimedia extravaganzas. Anyway, so best of luck in this, guys. You can go back and rehearse with them now because we're going to say goodbye. But this production, remember, on the 13th and 14th of February at the Capitol Theatre, and there will be tickets available soon.
Yeah.
There will be, won't there?
Oh, there will be. There will be. Yeah.
Very soon.
Yeah.
Good job to remind us of that.
Until next time, it's Margaret Stacey for Capital Times with Daryl, Verville, and Michael Graham. Thank you.